Hey warriors, when they play dirty, most people make one fatal mistake. They react emotionally, or they try to stay morally clean in a game that was never clean to begin with, and that's exactly how they lose. This world doesn't punish manipulation, it punishes naivety. The truth is uncomfortable but necessary. The people who keep getting outplayed are not stupid. They're principled without strategy. They're honest without awareness. They're decent in environments that reward perception, timing, and leverage. That's where Machiavelli comes in. Machiavelli wasn't teaching people how to be cruel. He was teaching people how to stop being blind. He understood something most people still resist today. Power doesn't announce itself. Manipulation doesn't look aggressive. And danger rarely raises its voice. Look closely at the people who play dirty. They don't rush. They don't threaten. They don't explode. They smile. They wait. They let you assume good intentions while they study your reactions. They know something you were never trained to see. They understand that most people reveal themselves without being asked, through explanations, through emotional reactions, through the need to be understood, liked, or seen as fair. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He observed that the fastest way to lose power is to assume everyone is operating by the same rules you are. Because dirty players don't break rules loudly. They bend context quietly. They don't attack your strength. They position themselves around your expectations. They exploit your hesitation. They rely on your belief that things will work themselves out. And they win while you're still deciding how to respond properly. This video is not about becoming heartless. It's not about lying, cheating, or turning into what you hate. It's about thinking clearly when others don't want you to. Because refusing to acknowledge manipulation doesn't make you noble. It makes you predictable. Machiavelli taught that survival in hostile environments requires perception before morality. Not the abandonment of values, but the protection of them. If someone is playing dirty with you, it's not because they're superior. It's because they understand timing, psychology, and human weakness better than you've been taught to. And once you understand what they see, you stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop bleeding energy where it's being harvested. You begin to move differently. In this video, I'm going to break down 7 Machiavellian principles that show you how to think when others play dirty. Not to dominate, not to destroy, but to become mentally unreachable. If you stay until the end, you won't feel angrier. You'll feel calmer, more grounded, and far harder to manipulate. Before we begin, drop this in the comments. I choose awareness over reaction. Number 1. Stop assuming intentions. Start reading incentives. Most people try to understand others by asking a dangerous question. What do they mean? Machiavelli would tell you that question is useless. Meaning is invisible. Incentives are not. When someone plays dirty, they don't wake up thinking, how can I be evil today? They think, what benefits me right now? That difference matters more than morality ever will. The fastest way to get manipulated is to analyze people through intention instead of advantage. You listen to tone. You look for sincerity. You measure consistency between words and emotions. Meanwhile, the other person is measuring outcomes. They are tracking leverage, timing, and access. This mismatch is where control shifts. Machiavelli understood that behavior follows reward, not virtue. People repeat what works, abandon what costs them, and justify everything in between. When you judge actions through assumed goodness, you miss the engine driving them. Here's what dirty players do exceptionally well. They place themselves where outcomes favor them regardless of what they say. They don't need to lie loudly. They just need conditions where silence benefits them more than truth. They don't need to argue. They just need environments where confusion slows you down. While you're asking why someone did something, they're already deciding what comes next. This is why good people get caught off guard. They believe intent explains behavior. So when harm happens, they search for misunderstanding instead of motive. They replay conversations. They look for clarity. They assume correction will restore balance. Dirty players count on that delay. Machiavelli would tell you to ignore explanations entirely and ask a sharper question. What do they gain if I believe this? That question cuts through performance. If someone benefits from your patience, they will encourage patience. If they benefit from your silence, they will reward restraint until it no longer serves you. If they gain from confusion, they will never rush clarity. Once you start tracking incentives, patterns emerge quickly. You notice who only cooperates when observed, who becomes vague when accountability approaches, who encourages fairness only when they're ahead, who suddenly invokes morality when consequences appear. None of this requires confrontation. It requires observation without commentary. Machiavelli warned that reacting too early teaches others how to manage you. When you immediately respond emotionally, you reveal what matters. When you demand explanation, you reveal uncertainty. When you seek reassurance, you reveal dependence. Dirty players file that information away. Instead, distance yourself mentally. Let behavior continue long enough to reveal its direction. Watch what stays consistent when praise, pressure, and politeness are removed. Incentives don't lie. They don't improvise. They repeat. This is why Machiavelli valued patience over purity. Patience lets outcomes speak. Purity rushes to judgment before the board is visible. When you stop assuming shared values, you regain strategic footing. Not because you become suspicious, but because you become accurate. You stop needing closure. You stop demanding honesty from people who profit from ambiguity. You stop expecting alignment from those invested in imbalance. And here's the shift most people miss. Once you see incentives clearly, emotional charge fades. You no longer feel personally attacked. You feel informed. That calm is power. You don't argue motives, you adjust access. You don't debate fairness, you change position. You don't expose what you see. You let behavior hang in the open long enough to confirm itself. Machiavelli never said, trust no one. He said, understand first, engage later. The moment you stop asking, are they good, and start asking, what does this reward? You step out of confusion and into control. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I read incentives, not stories. Number 2, control access before you try to control outcomes. Most people try to fix situations from the wrong level. They focus on results. They argue decisions. They negotiate conclusions. Machiavelli would say they're already late. Real influence is established before outcomes are discussed, at the level of access. Dirty players understand this instinctively. They don't fight over final decisions first. They quietly decide who gets proximity, who gets information, and who gets emotional entry. Once those gates are set, outcomes follow naturally. The mistake many people make is assuming presence equals participation. They stay involved out of habit, politeness, or fear of seeming difficult. They believe being available keeps them relevant. In reality, it keeps them exposed. Access is not neutral, it is currency. Every time someone has uninterrupted access to your attention, they are collecting data, your tone, your timing, your stress points, your patterns. Dirty players don't rush this process. They observe calmly while you fill the space with explanations, reactions, and availability. Machiavelli understood that people treat you according to how reachable you are, not how valuable you are. When access is constant, respect erodes. When access requires intention, behavior sharpens. This is why manipulative individuals push for familiarity early. Casual conversations, frequent check-ins, unnecessary updates, emotional oversharing disguised as bonding. None of it is random. It lowers the cost of interaction. Once interaction is cheap, pressure becomes easy. You'll notice this pattern everywhere. At work, where people bypass structure and come just to talk. In social circles, where boundaries are framed as distance. In negotiations, where urgency is manufactured to keep you engaged. Machiavelli would advise stepping back, not dramatically, but deliberately. You don't announce distance, you introduce friction. You don't confront intrusion, you shorten exchanges. You don't explain absence, you normalize selectivity. This recalibration does something subtle but powerful. It forces others to self-regulate. When access is no longer automatic, people reconsider how they approach you. Tone improves. Requests become clearer. Behavior tightens. Dirty players dislike this shift because it removes their ability to probe freely. Without steady interaction, they lose feedback. Without feedback, they can't adjust tactics. This is where most people get uncomfortable. They fear that reducing access will look cold or arrogant. Dirty players rely on that fear. They frame boundaries as insecurity. They suggest openness equals confidence. Machiavelli saw through this illusion. Confidence does not require constant engagement. Authority does not require constant explanation. Strength does not require constant presence. By controlling access, you reverse the flow of effort. Others begin investing more to reach you. They prepare better. They reveal priorities faster. The dynamic flips quietly. Another overlooked aspect of access is emotional entry. Dirty players don't just want your time, they want your internal state. Once emotions are involved, leverage multiplies. Reactions become predictable. Pressure becomes effective. Machiavelli would tell you to guard emotional access more tightly than information. You can replace facts. You cannot reclaim exposed triggers. This doesn't mean emotional suppression. It means emotional privacy. You don't vent upward. You don't process in public. You don't resolve internally while others are watching. When emotions remain contained, decisions remain yours. Notice how people change when they realize they can't reach you instantly. Some grow respectful. Some grow impatient. Some reveal entitlement. All of it is useful information. Access restriction is not punishment. It is filtration. Those who adapt respectfully earn proximity. Those who push reveal intent. Machiavelli believed power grows where dependency shrinks. When others no longer rely on your immediate availability, interaction becomes intentional instead of habitual. The goal is not isolation, it is selective exposure. When you decide who gets access, when, and at what depth, outcomes stop surprising you. You are no longer pulled into situations, you step into them prepared. Control access first. Outcomes will follow. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My presence is intentional. Number 3. Let others reveal themselves while you stay unfinished. Most people feel an intense urge to complete interactions. They want closure. They want understanding. They want conversations to feel resolved. Machiavelli would tell you that this impulse is a liability. Completion satisfies the ego, not strategy. Dirty players depend on your desire to finish things neatly. They provoke just enough tension to trigger your need for resolution. Once that need activates, you begin offering clarity, reassurance, and explanation, not because it benefits you, but because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. This is where advantage leaks. An unfinished posture keeps control mobile. When others don't know where you stand, what you're thinking, or how you've interpreted events, they remain exposed. They speak more. They adjust behavior impulsively. They attempt to steer outcomes through over-communication. Machiavelli understood that people talk the most when they're unsure. Silence invites projection. Projection reveals intent. When you remain partially unreadable, others fill the space. They clarify motivations you never asked about. They justify choices you never challenged. They volunteer context that would have stayed hidden if you rushed to respond. This is not passive behavior. It is strategic restraint. Dirty players expect reaction or resistance. They prepare scripts for both. What they rarely prepare for is ambiguity. Ambiguity forces improvisation, and improvisation exposes cracks. Staying unfinished means resisting the urge to correct assumptions immediately. If someone misunderstands you and the misunderstanding doesn't cost you position, let it stand. The correction can wait. Their next move will tell you whether the confusion is innocent or useful to them. Machiavelli valued delayed clarity because it allowed patterns to emerge. One incident reveals nothing. Repetition reveals everything. When you close loops too early, you erase data. Most people reveal too much because they want to be seen accurately. Dirty players exploit this by misinterpreting deliberately, knowing you'll rush to clarify. In doing so, you expose priorities, limits, and emotional investment. Instead, allow interpretation to sit. Watch how others behave when they believe they have the upper hand. Watch what they repeat. Watch what they escalate. Watch how they behave when they think you haven't noticed. An unfinished stance also protects your internal state. When you don't rush to define your position externally, you preserve flexibility internally. You are free to reassess without defending a public stance. Machiavelli understood that premature commitment narrows options. Once you declare certainty, retreat becomes costly. Staying unfinished keeps options open while others commit themselves through action. There is also a psychological imbalance created when you don't seek resolution. People accustomed to control feel unsettled. They attempt to regain equilibrium by talking more, pushing harder, or revealing frustration. Each response offers insight. This is why dirty players try to force conclusions. They demand answers. They push timelines. They frame delays as weakness. Their discomfort is not about clarity, it's about lost leverage. An unfinished position denies them that leverage. This does not mean stalling forever. It means choosing when completion serves you. Resolution should occur on your terms, not in response to pressure. Machiavelli believed that power operates best when others move first. When they commit resources, statements, or behavior before you do, they limit themselves. You gain room. Staying unfinished also changes how you are perceived. People stop assuming access to your thoughts. They become cautious with words. They consider consequences before acting. Predictability fades. Many fear that openness builds trust. Machiavelli would argue that measured opacity builds respect. Trust grows from consistency over time, not from instant transparency. Let conversations breathe. Let situations develop. Let people show you who they are without interruption. You don't need to dominate dialogue. You don't need to settle narratives. You don't need to finish what benefits from remaining open. When you resist closure, you stop being managed by urgency. You become the observer instead of the respondent. and observers decide outcomes. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I don't rush closure. Number 4. Neutrality is camouflage. Emotion is a beacon. Most people believe showing emotion proves authenticity. Machiavelli would say it proves location. Emotion tells others exactly where to aim. Dirty players are not hunting honesty, they're hunting reaction points. Every visible emotional shift is a signal. Frustration shows where pressure works. Excitement shows where desire lives. Defensiveness shows where insecurity hides. None of this requires interrogation. It appears automatically when emotion leads behavior. This is why experienced manipulators rarely rush conversations toward facts. They steer toward feeling. Once emotion surfaces, control becomes easier. Logic bends. Timing speeds up. Choices narrow. Machiavelli understood that emotional visibility removes ambiguity, and ambiguity is protection. Neutrality functions like camouflage. When expression remains measured, others struggle to locate leverage. They test, they probe, they exaggerate. Each attempt reveals more about them than about you. The mistake most people make is believing neutrality equals indifference. It doesn't. It equals discipline. You can care deeply without broadcasting it. You can be affected without advertising where. Dirty players depend on emotional confirmation. When they don't get it, their certainty weakens. Notice how often people escalate when they can't read you. They repeat points louder. They sharpen tone. They overstate importance. This escalation is not confidence, it's loss of orientation. Machiavelli observed that emotional restraint creates psychological imbalance. The person revealing less controls tempo. The person revealing more chases stability. This reversal quietly shifts authority. Neutrality also disrupts narrative traps. When you respond emotionally, others frame you as invested, threatened, or reactive. When you remain even-toned, framing fails. Observers struggle to assign motive. Without motive, judgment stalls. Dirty players rely heavily on labeling: sensitive, difficult, uncooperative. Labels stick best when emotion supports them. Neutral behavior starves labels of fuel. Another advantage of neutrality is internal. Emotional containment preserves clarity. When reactions are paused, perception sharpens. You notice inconsistencies. You catch timing shifts. You see alignment or lack of it between words and action. Machiavelli valued this internal separation. Feeling does not disappear, it is postponed. Postponement keeps choice intact. Many people confuse emotional honesty with immediate expression. Dirty players encourage this belief because it benefits them. Immediate expression creates predictability. Predictability simplifies manipulation. Neutrality breaks that cycle. This does not mean robotic behavior. It means proportional response. Calm when others expect agitation. Steady when others expect reassurance. Minimal when others expect explanation. These mismatches force recalibration. Watch how people change when they can't provoke visible reaction. Some grow cautious, some lose interest, some escalate recklessly. Each response is diagnostic. Machiavelli understood that the safest position is one that offers no emotional handle. Without handles, pressure slips. There is also a reputational effect. Over time, people associate neutrality with gravity. Words carry more weight when emotion doesn't dilute them. Silence feels intentional instead of awkward. Presence feels grounded instead of reactive. This reputation changes how others approach you. They prepare more carefully. They choose words more deliberately. They test less frequently. Not because you demanded it, but because uncertainty enforces respect. Many fear neutrality will make them seem distant. Dirty players exploit this fear by framing emotional openness as strength. In reality, uncontrolled emotion benefits observers more than participants. Machiavelli would argue that inner intensity should be protected, not displayed. What is protected cannot be exploited. Neutrality also creates strategic delay without appearing evasive. You're not refusing, you're processing. You're not disengaging, you're observing. This posture buys time without inviting pressure. The goal is not suppression, it's containment. Containment keeps reactions from becoming signals. Signals become maps. Maps guide manipulation. When neutrality becomes habit, dirty players stop trying. The cost of probing rises, the payoff drops, effort moves elsewhere, and that is the quiet victory. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I keep my reactions private. Number 5. Remove yourself from linear thinking. Most people approach conflict as a straight line. Cause leads to response. Action demands reply. Pressure requires resolution. Machiavelli would say this mindset traps you inside someone else's design. Dirty players think in layers, not sequences. While you're focused on the immediate exchange, they're already operating 2 steps away, altering context, shifting perception, or adjusting terrain, so the final outcome favors them regardless of what you choose. Linear thinkers react. Layered thinkers reposition. This is why many intelligent people lose ground without realizing how. They respond correctly to the situation presented, unaware that the situation itself was arranged to narrow options. Machiavelli understood that the most effective move is often lateral, not forward. Instead of responding directly, you change the surrounding conditions. Instead of answering the question, you alter the relevance of the question. Dirty players do this instinctively. When challenged, they don't argue the point, they redirect attention. They introduce a new variable, they change timing, they shift audience. Suddenly the original issue dissolves without being resolved. Linear thinkers chase the issue. Strategic thinkers outgrow it. To remove yourself from linear thinking, you must stop treating every interaction as self-contained. No exchange exists in isolation. Every conversation sits inside a broader environment: reputation, alliances, timing, and attention. Machiavelli would advise asking a different question before responding. What larger structure does this situation belong to? Once you identify that structure, your options expand. For example, if someone pressures you publicly, the issue is not the accusation, it's the setting. A direct defense strengthens the frame. A lateral move, delaying, redirecting, or removing the audience, collapses it. Dirty players depend on your willingness to play the presented game. When you refuse, the advantage disappears. Linear thinking also encourages urgency. You feel compelled to answer now, decide now, react now. Dirty players manufacture this urgency because it shortens your strategic range. Machiavelli saw urgency as a tool, not a condition. Those who control timing control outcome. Those who rush surrender it. Non-linear responses disrupt momentum. When you slow or sidestep, pressure loses shape. Others are forced to adapt. Adaptation exposes intention. Another trap of linear thinking is moral sequencing. You believe fairness should come first, clarity second, outcome last. Dirty players reorder these priorities. They secure outcome first, justify later, and let morality trail behind. Machiavelli would not advise copying this, but he would advise recognizing it. When you insist on linear ethics in non-linear environments, you become predictable. Breaking linearity does not mean abandoning principle. It means separating response from reaction. You can choose not to answer the question being asked. You can respond at a different time. You can engage through a different channel. You can let consequences emerge elsewhere. These moves confuse those seeking direct engagement. They can't anchor you. They can't force progression. They lose the ability to script. Layered positioning also allows you to win without confrontation. When the environment shifts, opponents often disengage without realizing why. They feel resistance without opposition. They encounter friction without argument. Machiavelli believed this was the highest form of control. Most people fight on the board they're given. Strategic thinkers redesign the board. This is why silence, delay, redirection, and repositioning are so powerful. They're not avoidance, they're elevation. When you stop thinking linearly, you stop being dragged. You stop mistaking immediacy for importance. You stop confusing response with strength. Dirty players thrive where thinking is narrow. When perspective widens, their advantage shrinks. The moment you step out of straight-line reactions, the game becomes optional. Number 6. Master the art of strategic absence. Power is not only built by what you do, it is amplified by what you deliberately withhold. Most people believe presence equals importance. They show up constantly. They stay available. They respond immediately. They explain themselves endlessly. And without realizing it, they dilute their own value. Influence grows in silence, not noise. Scarcity creates gravity. Absence forces attention. When you are always accessible, people stop measuring you. When you pull back intentionally, they start calculating. Strategic absence is not disappearance. It is controlled withdrawal. It is knowing when to step out of view, so others feel the vacuum you leave behind. Humans are wired to notice loss more than availability. They ignore what feels guaranteed. They obsess over what feels uncertain. When you remove yourself, without drama, without warning, you trigger a subtle imbalance. Conversations shift. Your name enters rooms you're no longer in. People begin reassessing your role in their life. Not because you demanded attention, because you stopped feeding it. This is where real leverage forms. Weak individuals fear being forgotten. Strong individuals understand that mystery preserves relevance. When you're not constantly visible, your actions carry more weight when you return. Your words feel deliberate instead of reactive. Your presence feels chosen, not desperate. Silence unsettles those who rely on predictability. Distance exposes dependency. Those who never valued you will barely notice. Those who benefited from you will feel the disruption immediately. And that distinction matters. Strategic absence reveals who saw you as a convenience and who recognized you as an asset. This principle applies everywhere: relationships, social circles, work environments, power hierarchies. If your removal causes confusion, you mattered. If it causes panic, you were holding leverage. If it causes nothing, you were already expendable, and now you know. The mistake people make is vanishing emotionally while remaining physically present. They stay around, but disengage mentally. That creates resentment, not respect. True withdrawal is clean. No explanations, no announcements, no emotional residue. You don't punish others with silence. You reclaim your time and attention as resources, and resources gain value when they are no longer free. This is not about manipulation. It is about self-positioning. The world treats you based on how you teach it to. If you teach people that you are endlessly available, they consume you casually. If you teach them that access is conditional, they approach with intention. Powerful figures throughout history understood this instinctively. They allowed uncertainty to work on their behalf. They let others project meaning into the gap. When people don't know your next move, they assume strength. When you stop over-communicating, your silence speaks authority. Strategic absence also sharpens your own clarity. Distance reveals patterns you couldn't see while embedded. You gain perspective instead of reaction. You observe instead of absorb. And observation is where advantage lives. You stop chasing validation. You stop correcting misunderstandings. You stop explaining choices. Not because you are cold, but because you are centered. When you return, when you choose to, you do so with intention, not urgency. Remember this: attention given too freely becomes invisible. Presence without restraint becomes noise. But absence, used wisely, becomes pressure. And pressure reshapes power dynamics without a single word spoken. Number 7. Control the frame before you control the outcome. Most people lose long before the conflict begins, not because they are weaker, but because they allow others to define the context. Whoever controls the frame controls perception, and perception determines judgment. You don't need dominance if you own interpretation. The frame is the invisible boundary that decides how actions are understood. It answers unspoken questions before they are asked. Who has authority? Who reacts? Who explains? Who waits? People rarely argue facts. They argue meanings. If you let others decide what your actions mean, you surrender power without resistance. Weak players argue inside frames they didn't choose. Strong ones shift the lens entirely. Imagine two people performing the same behavior. One is labeled confident, the other is called arrogant. The difference is not behavior, it's framing. The mistake is trying to defend yourself inside someone else's narrative. Defense accepts their premise, and the moment you accept the premise, you've already lost. True control comes from redefining the terms silently. You don't say, "That's not what I meant." You act in a way that makes alternative interpretations irrelevant. This is why powerful individuals rarely clarify. Clarification lowers status. It signals uncertainty. Instead, they behave consistently until the environment adapts. Consistency over explanation reshapes perception. Framing begins before words. It lives in timing, posture, pacing, and restraint. When you speak too quickly, you signal urgency. When you over-detail, you signal insecurity. When you rush to justify, you signal vulnerability. Calm pacing reframes the situation instantly. Silence reframes it even faster. People assume the one who is unbothered holds advantage. The most dangerous move is not aggression. It's composure when pressure is expected. When others anticipate reaction and receive none, their confidence fractures. They begin questioning their own position. They fill the void with assumptions, and assumptions rarely favor them. This is how frames collapse. Another key: never argue labels. Labels are traps. If someone assigns you a role, villain, threat, obstacle, rejecting it strengthens it. Ignoring it dissolves it. You don't deny the accusation. You operate above it. Action reframes faster than language. History remembers those who moved forward while others debated definitions. Framing also applies internally. If you define setbacks as failure, you shrink. If you define them as calibration, you advance. Your inner narrative determines your external posture. And posture influences how others respond to you. Those who control their internal frame are almost impossible to destabilize. They don't personalize resistance. They don't internalize rejection. They don't seek emotional closure. They treat events as data, not verdicts. This mindset creates a quiet superiority, not arrogance, but gravity. Others sense it without understanding it. You're not trying to win approval. You are setting conditions, and conditions shape outcomes without confrontation. The ultimate frame is inevitability. When your movement feels unavoidable, opposition weakens before it forms. People stop asking if you'll succeed. They begin asking when. That shift doesn't happen through persuasion. It happens through positioning. Remember this: whoever explains is already reacting. Whoever reacts is already behind. Whoever defines the context decides the direction. You don't need to dominate every exchange. You need to decide what the exchange represents. Control that, and the result follows. You didn't come this far to remain who you were. Something shifted while you were listening, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. That's how real change begins. You've now seen what most people avoid their entire lives. Not tricks, not surface tactics, but the architecture beneath power. You learned that strength isn't loud, that control isn't frantic, that dominance doesn't beg for recognition. It waits. Every principle you just absorbed points to the same truth. The world doesn't reward good intentions. It responds to positioning. Those who rush are used. Those who explain are tested. Those who react are managed. But those who move with precision, they reshape the environment around them. You don't need to announce your transformation. In fact, the most dangerous shifts are invisible at first. Let people underestimate you. Let them misread your silence. Let them confuse restraint for weakness. Because while they're guessing, you're building. From this moment on, your life becomes quieter, but heavier. Your words become fewer, but sharper. Your presence becomes rarer, but undeniable. You stop chasing alignment. You become the reference point. Some people will feel uncomfortable around you now, not because you changed toward them, but because you changed away from their control. That's the price of evolution, and it's worth paying. Power isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's knowing when to step forward and when to disappear, when to speak and when to let silence do the damage, when to act and when to let others reveal themselves. If this video unsettled you, good. Comfort never built anything formidable. Remember this as you leave. You don't rise by proving, you rise by positioning. And once you understand that, you are no longer playing the same game as everyone else. You are writing the rules.